One of the most interesting titles of Jesus is Son of Man. And it may actually be his most important title. Here's why. Throughout the Gospels, 85 times we read this title, Son of Man. Listen, no one else is called Son of Man except Jesus. And no one calls Jesus Son of Man except Jesus. Oh, there's a couple of editorial comments where he's labeled Son of Man, but that's way after the time of Jesus. In his lifetime, he called himself Son of Man. No one else was called the Son of Man. No one else called him the Son of Man. That's important. But why? We really need to dip back into the Old Testament. This title was fairly common. About 107 times it's used. 93 of those times is in one book, the book of Ezekiel, where God calls Ezekiel Son of Man. It's not really an insult, but it's certainly not a compliment. He's saying, Ezekiel, I'm God, you're not. I'm eternal, you are Son of Man, warts, pimples, and all. Psalm 8 uses the phrase in a similar way. What is man that you are mindful of him? Or the Son of Man that you care about him? All in all, Son of Man is a title of humility. And Jesus takes that title on himself. But there's one fascinating exception in the Old Testament to this use of Son of Man, where it's not kind of putting you in your place, but actually is a title of exaltation. It comes from the book of Daniel. Chapter 7, verse 13. Daniel's having this strange vision of God. And God is high and exalted, as he always is. He's sitting on his throne, hair white like wool, voice like thunder. And next to him, the verse says, behold, with the clouds of heaven there came one like a son of man. And Daniel's saying to himself, why is a son of man next to God in his abode? I mean, the Son of Man should be here, lowly, human. Why is he high and exalted? It is because of that one single verse that Jesus takes this title, Son of Man. Because not only was it a title of humility, humanity, it's a title of one who would go to God on behalf of all other men. That's why Jesus is called the second Adam. He is the perfect man who is not only 100% human, but 100% God. In the end of the book, Revelation chapter 1, you see a strange juxtaposition. Jesus, pictured like Yahweh from Daniel 7, hair white like wool, voice like thunder. Now that Son of Man that you expect to be way up there is again back down here. The Son of Man is among us. The theology of the Bible and Jesus' self-identity is that he is God. We've already talked about the incarnation. He is God, but he also came to be with us. Now, why does any of this matter to you? I mean, it's interesting to think about how Jesus thought about himself. But the importance is this. The Son of Man title of Jesus is not just a title of humility while he was living in humanity. It is a model for how humanity can live again with God. How we can be with the God of heaven where he is exalted. Listen, that's God's intention. All along, from the Garden of Eden on, he intended for us to have a relationship with him. But because of our sin, we've degraded ourselves. And remember why we degraded ourselves? Because in our human state, we wanted to be God. So how in our fallen state can we recover that kind of exaltation? Jesus gives us a secret. It is through self-abnegation. Through the humility with which he called himself Son of Man, we will be exalted again to God's right hand. God said it himself not once, over a dozen times, and not just in one testament, throughout the Bible. He who humbles himself, God will exalt. But those who exalt themselves, they will be humbled. And that entire theology is captured in this one title of Jesus, Son of Man. That's why I think it is his most important title, because it is the most relevant title for us to adopt for ourselves.